everyone. Good day, students. I am teacher Jeremy, and today we'll be talking about plot structure. So before we talk about the plot structure, let me introduce first what is plot. So plot is the way an author creates and organizes a chain of events in a narrative. In short, plot is the foundation of a story. Some describe it as the what of a text, whereas the characters are the who and the theme is the why. So, a story without a plot is not really a story because plot is where mainly the story revolves. It introduces you to the characters, settings, and also the other parts of the story. So, what does plot do? So, the plot must follow a logical, enticing format that draws the reader in. Plot differs from story in that it highlights a specific and purposeful cause and effect relationship between a sequence of major events in the narrative. So, here, plot must be in order because you will not or you will never understand a story if it is not in order. So, for example, um, on the first part of the story, it was already stated the end. Then, how will you be able to, or will you be able to know, or will you be able to know more about the story, or like understand? So no. So that is why the plot must be in order. So here on the next slide, we have the parts of plots. So first one, we have here the exposition, rising action, climax, falling action, and the last one is the resolution or the denouement. So let us dig deeper onto what these parts of plots or mean, right? Okay, so the first one here is the exposition. It sets the scene and it is the beginning of the story where we meet our main character and see what if their life is like, and it also establishes the setting and tone. So here, the antagonist, protagonist, the setting is being introduced so that the reader will be able to like follow what is going on in the story. And also it is where it is the part where the reader will like set their expectations on the book that they will be reading. Next, we have here the rising action. The exposition leads to an event known as the inciting incident. This is the gateway to the rising action. This part of the story contains all the events that lead to the culmination of all the plot points. We see most of the conflict in this section. So, as stated in the slide, the conflict is introduced here in the story. So, like, it will make us, or it will make the book or the story suspenseful as the problem of the story is introduced here in this part. Next one, we have here the climax. So it is the height of a story. The character finally faces and usually defeats whatever the major conflict is. Tension builds through the rising action and peaks at the climax. Sometimes stories have more than one climax depending on the plot structure or if there are two different character arcs. So here in climax, just what I have said earlier, on the rising action, the conflict or the problems of the story is already introduced. While here in the climax, it is the most thrilling part since there we will be able to know if the character is able to, or the antagonist or protagonist is able to survive um, survive in the story. So next to climax is falling action. So falling action is when all the other conflicts or character arcs begin resolving. Anything that isn't addressed in the climax will be addressed in the falling action. Just because the characters have passed the most difficult part of the plot doesn't mean everything is tied up neatly in a bow. Sometimes the climax causes a new conflict. So since we are last part, or like before the falling action is the climax, so there we see the most thrilling part. Like for example, the main character or the antagonist was shot by the protagonist. So in the following action, we will be able to know if the character or the antagonist will be able to survive, or like he will die, or because he will die, and also we will be able to see, or like foresee what the ending will be in this falling action. So the last part of the plot structure is the resolution or the denouement. So the end of the story is called the resolution or denouement. All major conflicts are resolved or purposely left open for a cliffhanger or sequel. So this is where, for example, the story is like not like, I mean, you will not like the ending. It's because the author must be planning a part two or book two of that specific stories. So in many stories, this is where you find the happily ever after, but a resolution doesn't have to be happy. It's the ending of a story, arc, or plot, and all the questions are answered or intentionally unanswered. So this is the most, yeah, I mean, as for me as a book reader, I mean, not that um but I love watching movies really from books. So I mean, the ending is actually the most exciting part, but I mean, it is also a sad part because you'll needing to say goodbye to that story, and you will be able to know what the characters, or what are the result of the actions of the characters. All right, since I already introduced the parts of plots, do you have any questions, class? Anybody from the class? Okay, so if you don't have any more questions, let us now proceed to our first activity, which is this one here. For a second. So the activity, this activity will be done by finding the correct or correct part of the plot here. So this story that I'll be introducing to you, it is entitled "The Twilight" by Stephanie Meyer. So let us all answer this one here. Second. Okay, so first, let us read the first box. So, tricked by James, Bella is attacked and fed on. At this moment, Edward and his family arrive and kill James. Bella nearly dies from the vampire venom in her blood, but Edward sucks it out, saving her life. So for the next boxes, you'll be the one to read it, but please read it silently, okay? I'll give you 5 minutes. All right, so since we're already done reading and answering the activity, let us now answer what are the parts of the plot structure. Okay, first, exposition. So, may I have the girl in the back, to answer these number one, or exposition? All right, correct. So the answer for the exposition is box number Number 3. Okay, so let us all read the passage. Bella Swan is a high school junior who moves to live with her father in a remote town in Washington state. She meets a strange boy named Edward. And after an initially awkward meeting, the two start to become friends. One day, Edward successfully uses his bare hands to stop a car from crushing Bella, making her realize that something is very different about this boy. So, how do we know that this is the exposition? So, um, just what I have discussed earlier, exposition or will introduce you the main characters of the story, the setting, or the tone. So here, Bella is already introduced, Edward, and as well as where they live. It is the Washington state. Okay, so the next one for rising action, may I have you, Anna? All right. Okay, may I know what did you answer here? Okay, correct. Box number 4. So let's all read. Bella discovers that Edward is a vampire after doing some research and asking him questions. The two develop strong romantic feelings and quickly fall in love. Bella meets Edward's family of vampires, who happily accept her when playing baseball together. However, they end up attracting a gang of non-vegetarian vampires. One of these vampires, James, notices that Bella is a human and decides to kill her. Edward and his family work hard to protect Bella, but James lures her to him by making her believe he has kidnapped her mother. So, the rising action here, as what I have mentioned earlier, the conflict of the story is starting to unveil, and also it is where you will sense the suspense in the story that you are reading. All right, so let's proceed now to our climax. So, who wants to answer? All right, correct. So, the answer for our climax is box number 1. So, how do we know that this is our climax? Let us all read. Tricked by James, Bella is attacked and fed on. At this moment, Edward and his family arrive and kill James. Bella nearly dies from the vampire venom in her blood, but Edward sucks it out, saving her life. So how do we know that this is our climax? Okay, correct, because on this part of the story, it is the most thrilling part since Bella is attacked already and the conflict is starting to get more complicated, and but the result of the problem is not yet revealed. Okay. All right, so let's proceed to the falling action. All right, correct. So the answer for the falling action is the 5th slide. So Bella wakes up in the hospital heavily injured but still alive. She still wants to be in a relationship with Edward despite the risk involved, and the two agree to stay together. So here in our falling action, the main conflict from the climax is already resolved, and also we already know what happened to our main character in this part of the plot. So next, we will now proceed to our resolution. So for the resolution, we have here the correct answer, box number 2. So let us all read. Months later, Edward takes Bella to the prom. The two have a good time, and Bella tells Edward that she wants him to turn her into a vampire right then and there. But he refuses and pretends to bite her neck instead. So that's how the story ends of Twilight by Stephanie Meyer. And I'm also sure that most of us is actually familiar with the story since it has a movie adaptation. All right. So since we are already done with our first activity, so for us to learn more about plot structure and how to recognize this in a story or a certain story, I have here on the next slide a story that I will introduce. So it is actually a fable. All right. So this story is entitled Amumongo and Ipot Ipot, or in English, it is The Apes and the Fireflies. So I will give you 10 minutes to read this in silent, and afterwards, I will introduce to you what activity we'll be doing in this story. Okay. Or all right. So our 10 minutes is already up. So I will now give you the instruction for our next activity.